How will I know when we're live? I'm just going to assume.
You are good.
I will call the meeting, the special meeting of the Wenatchee School Board on June 2nd to order. This is our regular COVID update meeting, and we also do have an executive session attached to this meeting at the end, correct? Paul, you disappeared.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Paul, take it away.
All right. So I'm having some technical difficulties here. I've got two computers and neither one is working. So I'm working off my iPhone. So this could be a little bit more challenging. So I may be leaning on my friends out there, Ron and Diana, to help me through this one today. Kind of starting off with just a few of the updates that we've been working on at the district office. The big piece was the conversation around unengaged students. And we've been able to track that data a little bit more closely. Ron and Janet from the district office have been working together to disaggregate that data a little bit further, similar to what we talked about 2 weeks ago. So I'm actually going to hand it to Ron so he can kind of walk you through and present that data, and then I'll chime in as needed. He'll probably be better at that anyways.
All right, don't sell yourself short, Paul.
Ron,
So,
yep, there he goes.
we are. So this is kind of some of the data we showed last meeting, and just to make sure we're all looking at what we're talking about is this was non-engaged students who we made multiple attempts to contact, and through those contacts, we then had each building record in our student information system what was the result of that contact. And so what I did, a couple different things as you look at the data, we did disaggregate it. We also did find this was unique students. So for instance, if one student was contacted multiple times, or if there's multiple reasons, they're only represented once in the data. So we have a better data set to look at. So this first chart, non-engaged by reason. So this is raw numbers of kids, not percentages, and the reason buckets they fell in when we look at the records within our student information system. Any questions on that one? Because I think the percentage ones kind of ring a little clearer, but these are raw data numbers. The second one, remote learning unengaged students by reasons. Again, same data, now it's by percentages of those contacted. So of the unique students, 48%, we still are having trouble getting a hold of them. And that's through multiple attempts. That's through any means we can think of. And Paul might speak to that a little bit later. What measures have we taken to make those contacts at the home sites as best we can, using whatever resources we can find. So that's that one. By school, so you can see the breakout of each building. And there is, the only anomaly here is Orchard, where they chose to not just include their non-engaged students. This also includes some kids who potentially were slightly engaged, I would call it. So their numbers are a little bit higher, but they did a pretty good job really early of reaching out quickly. So I think that reflects that. And then we did some breakouts. So this is our low income status and how they laid out, the layout of the type of reason was pretty similar regardless of the breakdown. But our low income students were obviously, poverty is a factor as we look at this data in terms of us contacting kids. A good chunk of our no contacts were low income students. And then we did special education by your choice. Shoot, I should have switched these colors. I apologize. Just to point out a little bit difference in the flip-flop here. The red is non-special education. So the blue is our special education students that are tagged special education. So that's the percentage of those non-engaged that are special education status, or they have an IEP. And the order remains pretty consistent regardless of the subgroup. We broke out migrant, as another one of our populations to think about. And so we can see migrant in blue and the non-migrant students with the red. Okay. And then just some raw data. I think it's just something to think about as we think about this. These are unique unengaged students that we've contacted or tried to contact. A majority being on the side of low income or poverty, 815 compared to 283. And these are just total raw numbers of kids. Likewise, I put the same chart in there twice. There's our special education. I'll have to go, I'll fix the migrant one and then pop that back in there because it looks like I got the low income one there a couple times. So majority of our students that we can't contact are in that non-special education category. One of our hypotheses on this is we often do that contacting through IEP meetings and other contact methods with our special education population quite a bit. So this made sense to us as we looked at this data. Anything you want me to answer, look at in more particular, or any other breakouts you're interested in seeing? This is the current data as we've been slicing it each week.
Could you go back, Ron, to the histogram with the individual schools?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks. And can you just mention again why you felt that Orchard's number was so much higher? Because I was trying to get a view to look at the end part of that screen. I had I had to move my my attendees at the meeting up to the top so I could see that. So I kind of missed what you said. So if you could just repeat that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we have a perfect answer. I'm hypothesizing they started probably earliest out of any building. They had their own tracking system to contact kids.
Mm-hmm.
So some of these students weren't necessarily those who have been checked out over a period of time. They started very, very quickly, and it might have been those students who weren't engaging at a high enough level in their opinion. So they started making those contacts and recording them in that way. So these could have been kids, and we'll have to clarify with Mrs. Brown, the principal there, and find out. These could have been kids that were engaged, but not to the level of their satisfaction at the building level.
Mm-hmm.
So we still have some work to do, just making sure we have a very consistent way of interpreting engagement, of interpreting non-engaged, and when do we record. Because there's also some low numbers on here that we feel should be a little bit higher if we had a very consistent approach across each building. So we're continuing to communicate and collaborate with the leadership at each site to make sure we tighten up these numbers, especially going into summertime and leading into fall, and communicating with these kids ongoing into whatever start looks like come fall.
Ron, can I ask a clarifying question? From the way you describe Orchard, it almost sounds like these totals of heads are students that at one time or another were not engaged.
Correct.
That it's not a snapshot. A snapshot as of
Correct.
this week and last week, they would all be different. So this is
Correct.
a gross number.
Yes, that is true. That is true actually across the board.
Yeah.
Because we are recording, they are unique students. So the student that's counted in each of these raw numbers, even if they've been re-engaged that third or fourth time potentially in our data, they're only showing up once in the raw numbers. So at some point, they were unengaged. You are correct.
Right.
So do we know what how those numbers have shifted just in terms of, I think we heard early on that the percentage went down from like maybe 20% to 15 or 18% or something, but do we know, do we have data for that, for the different buildings?
We could probably track that based on when the data was put in, but we didn't have the intent to kind of look at it that granularly, like a week to week. So I think we could maybe pull something out, especially based on multiple entries into the system, because we are asking them to enter each week. What is that next way of contact, whether it's continued no contact or it's a new reason of re-engagement? They're actually, participating now at some point. So I would have to look at what we can pull out in terms of over time and see if we can do something like that.
Ron, I also had a question about the Tech Skills Center, those 7 students.
Mhm.
So, so 7 are not, or were not at some point engaged at the Tech Skills Center.
Right.
Were those same students also not engaging at Westside or Wenatchee High School? Because generally students are only at the Tech Center for half a day.
Right. That's an interesting question. I don't think anybody's asked it. We could pretty easily find that out looking at the raw data for sure.
Thank
But
you.
that's something that I can definitely find out and then communicate that with the principals of both the high schools too, to see if the data aligns. Because it should, you're right.
Thank you, Ron.
Absolutely.
And Ron, if I can kind of dig in to get a feel for some numbers, it looks like you've got 1098 people who at one time or another were not engaged.
Yep.
And then your first bar chart, I think you had something like 240. Where was the number? Oh, re-engaged 210. So if those stayed re-engaged, you say roughly 1100 minus 200, you're talking
about 900.
900
Yep.
as a ballpark. Call it a failure rate. No, system failure rate. That's the system failure rate is 900, which is a lot less than 20%.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, calling that out without building a graphic for it, you're around 800 to 900 students who continue to be unengaged. But 210, at least our raw numbers as of I think this was 2 days ago, were we reclaimed, whatever you want to call it. We've re-engaged that 210.
Right, and last time you only showed us about 3% re-engaged. So it looks to me like there's some encouraging progress that people should be thanked for. Am I right? Or
absolutely.
Absolutely.
I don't think anything's ever good enough. We want to attack that no contact number, and that's a hard one to swallow. But it is also something I know that every building is working so hard to try to find ways to make those connections. And I've heard some crazy stories on going the extra mile to try to make that happen.
Okay. No, thank you. End of my questions, I think.
Okay. Anybody else? I can stop sharing, or Paul can make any comments.
Yeah, I'll just jump in for a second here. If you look at those, the no content ones, and I'm really glad the board asked us to pull it down like this. The vast majority are students from low income, are special education students, and are migrant students. You put those 3 groupings together, you have almost the majority of our students who aren't being contacted in those groups, which probably not a big surprise. Poverty continues to matter, and and this whole piece that we're talking about, this equity issue, is so big, and it's not just around that connectivity, the technology. It's about all of the other issues that equity rears its ugly head around, and poverty is a big contributing factor to that. And we talked a little bit about some of those stories, from childcare, parents working, to people just trying to get food on the table. that these are the biggest issues that we have to try to overcome. And Ron's right. Our staff, our teachers, our principals, our parent liaisons, front office staff, I mean, it really is an all-out effort to try to engage kids and try to bring them back. And I also want to be clear, you know, the engaged factor is, we've shared before, you know, what is that criteria? You know, kids are turning in assignments as a form of engagement. Kids are showing up to open office hours. Kids are sending information back to teachers via email or even potentially phone calls. But I want to be clear, you know, 80% doesn't mean 80% of all kids are turning in all their work all the time. This is a true engagement level. Are kids touching base? Do we know where our kids are at? And have we made contact with them? So I think it's really important that no one gets confused that 8 kids are in each time, every time, and they're highly engaged. This is a pandemic. This is a worldwide pandemic, and kids are struggling just like the adults are for a myriad of reasons. They're struggling. Board?
So if we still have students who are on no contact, what have been the next steps to try to engage those students after multiple attempts have failed? What is our district doing?
So one of the pieces that they've been clear with us on is making sure that we're careful about the social distancing, but we do have some people who've gone to the home trying to keep socially distanced, multiple phone calls, letters, again, using our parent liaison, using our, and I'm seeing this in a non-negative term, in a pejorative way, is our truancy officer, but just using his services to help us engage in that and trying to connect with our kids and trying to get them what they need. For us, the biggest part is making sure we make these connections because we don't know what next year holds. And I think that's what concerns all of us. How do we start next year if we are in some type of online learning? How do we make sure we learn from this year so we can start next year right out of the gate doing well for our kids? But I will continue to hammer this. Poverty matters. And many of our kids are not engaged with us because they have life going on at their homes and wherever they're at. And those are the hardest ones for us to connect with right now.
I guess I wonder.
Board members?
I have a question just regarding, so we're still doing the lunches, obviously, for pickups. And I'm wondering, since we have a good percentage of folks in poverty, and hopefully they're picking up lunches, but I know people aren't assigned to pick up a lunch at a certain school, but are we, I don't know if we have different lists at different schools to say, or are you engaged? And I don't know. It just seems like that's an opportunity that
I know. No, it's
out, but I don't know.
Yeah, it was clear from the guidance of state and feds. They just needed tally marks for people,
right?
Because they weren't. It was about getting food in the hands of people, right, and not doing that like a typical lunch, like you would typically think, Michelle, and scan your ID or tell the nutritional service team your name and here's your lunch. This was literally ticking, you know, how many did we hand out? What was our total this week? You know, and we put a lot of information in those lunch bags. I'm blown away every time that we're printing, and because we know that's very similar to your thought process. We know that's one way of connecting, and that's where we do put messages in. If you need tech support, if you need this, that, or others, here are the numbers. And we're always trying to get our parents or students even to connect with our parent liaisons as well. Fluent Spanish, really trying to make sure we connect, or telling them to connect with our teachers or principals. Connect with us in any way, from the phone call to the email, however you can.
Great. Well,
Yeah.
I think we use those opportunities the best we can. And like you said, we can't have a list. But I think it sounds like, the district is utilizing that as an opportunity to engage for folks who may not otherwise be engaged. So I'm glad to hear that's happening on an ongoing basis. So.
Ford, any more questions on this? And then I'll kind of dovetail into where Michelle was at around lunches.
Well, I'm just wondering and thinking, about our community partners. If we are talking about folks in poverty and migrant families, are those folks congregated in neighborhoods? Do they tend to live in the same areas? And do we have community partners in those neighborhoods that could help us to get the word out? If we have friendly faces that they are more familiar with, they might be more responsive, or there might be communication avenues and that our school staff are not necessarily savvy to, that could be helpful.
Yeah, we're really leaning into Our Value, Our Future and Teresa Bendito, and others who have the Latino communication network that they've built since the COVID in partnership. So Diana has done a nice job of connecting with Teresa and trying to make sure we're doing those pieces. But you're right, any other partnerships we're open to. We're going to be meeting tomorrow with Community Foundation in different ways to support families who are struggling. So I'll put the word out as well.
I'm
to
thinking
anybody
about
who
cafe.
knows and how we can connect. Yep.
Alma.
We can reach out to Alma. Yep. We can absolutely do that.
One of the things that I think our Latino community connects more with people that they're familiar with, in this case, the family advocates, people that speak their language. And so, Michelle mentioned the lunch stop. So I don't know if it's a possibility, but having familiar face at the pickup sites, Columbia, Mission View, Lincoln, and just kind of, engaging with parents. How's it going? Are you ready? Are you logging in? Because part of my concern is that I get it, it's COVID time, but all our communication seems to be coming through social media, internet, and it just, you're only reaching a certain percentage of people going. We talk about email also. And so unless, I'm hooked on, I'm connected at all times of the day, but that's the reality for our low income families, our migrant families. And so I just feel like we're kind of just depending a lot on, the internet, social media, and not reaching outside of that space to try to connect.
So we
I don't have an
are
answer.
putting, no, you're absolutely, Maria. You're right. That is the large portion, but we are putting a lot of communication in our lunches on a regular basis. We put posters up to notify people where to contact us at, how to contact us. But yeah, we can keep doing a better job with the paper opportunities, and yeah, it's just a real challenge. How do we connect with people in this digital world? And how do we go back to being old school and trying to make sure that everybody has that opportunity? Diana,
Yeah.
I was just gonna see if you have any insights.
Yeah, I was just going to add, we are trying to create some more print communication with families and being strategic about what we send out. A great example of that is what we're doing with GWADA and partnering to pull together a mailing to get information into the hands of our families about how to connect to Wi-Fi, how to access some internet service provider, discounted plans to keep them connected to online classes, as well as just to, life in general. So we are trying to lean on that. But yeah, working with the Latino Communications Network and really trying to give them electronic resources that can also be printed and handed out in different spaces. We definitely have room to improve here, that's for sure. Another area that we're leveraging is our Latino radio station, our radio show that happens weekly. And as a matter of fact, Nadia Bush, who coordinates that and is the host for that show, she is bringing in Mr. Lopez as a kind of a new twist on that show weekly to do more of a Q&A where they're going to be asking for parents to submit questions, and then Mr. Lopez can answer those as a school administrator. So we're trying to kind of bring a different lens to things and mix up some of the communication that we're doing. But definitely we can mobilize more and do more. There's a lot happening right now, and I think that's the hard part is trying to be clear, consistent, and concise in our messaging in both languages. And there's just a lot that's coming out pretty quickly, but I agree with you. We can definitely improve in that space.
Picking up on Maria's thought pattern, you might have done it may be totally impractical, but is there any possibility of, say, having a family advocate engagement table adjacent to the lunch pickup place, maybe with a banner or even a banner there saying, we're going to have somebody here between 1 and 2 on certain days of the week, so that it's not too burdensome. I'm thinking of the way when we go to fairs, CVCH has people out there, and it's a very face-oriented approach to try and collect people. It's an alternative to walking the streets and banging on doors.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Nadia, Diane, and I can touch base tomorrow and see what else we can do.
Yeah, you could probably, Maria, you comment here. Perhaps we could ask the family advocates how parents coming by the schools, when they drop by, when they talk to them, what might be a good way to invite them or encourage them.
I think just seeing a familiar face,
Yeah.
Parents and students to engage a little bit more. There's this comfort zone area. It's just, there's just so many factors that, and I think the language piece is huge. Even for our students, my guess is that family advocates work with a lot of these students directly, when school's in session or when normal school's in session. So, for students to be able to engage, and because I know parents sent their kids without an adult, that's the reality for a lot of our families right now. So I think, the power of connecting with somebody that speaks your language, that you're familiar with, that you're comfortable with, is pretty big here.
So we'll keep working on that. We will keep working on that piece. Any other questions related to the engagement data?
I guess I just had a quick question, since we were talking about the lunchtime pickup. Do we at each of our locations have Spanish speakers available?
I would doubt it. I would doubt that would mean somebody on the nutritional services team, and it's just me saying not, but I can ask if there's any Spanish speaker at each site, but my gut is no.
That might be something that might be helpful, I guess, in line with Maria's, concern. If we can't have a family advocate, if we can maybe rotate, if we had interpreters or Spanish speakers, I don't know. But if there are questions that people have, but they can't engage with someone who speaks in English, then that might be helpful. I don't know. I don't
Okay,
think our-
we'll look into that.
Looks like, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Could we ask the parent organizations perhaps to have a volunteer along those lines? You're getting all sorts of things thrown out, but that would potentially be there might be somebody who could do a shift some of the time from one of the packs.
Absolutely. We can, we will kind of circle up tomorrow and see what we can do.
So just kind of realistically I think there's going to need to be some even advanced communication then if you were to do that, because, you know, we do the lunch pickup now almost daily, and it's, you know, it's a very streamlined drive up with your car. How many do you want and go? Because I think the original intent was to minimize contact and whatnot. And so, you know, maybe now as the phases in our ability to socialize opens, maybe that becomes an option. But I know even as a parent taking my kids down there, I get a little uncomfortable with, am I supposed to stay too far away? Can I even touch the lunch? And so I think, you know, it's gonna, seeing multiple stations now set up, it's such a quick process that it'll, you know, we're gonna have to be clear in what is this station for and who's that there, because it's you know, it's literally drive through, pick up and go.
It is. I mean, Julie, I appreciate you bringing that up. It is not a lot of engagement there.
No.
I mean, we're talking seconds.
Yeah.
As I've been there, it is, if the lunch ladies remember the students, which most of them do, it's a quick, hey, Paul, hey, Julie, here's your lunch. And literally that's about it. But you see it on a daily basis. And
We have a
so and again, the
experience.
communication, how are we getting out the communication again? And we are open to trying to engage everybody, but it's how do we notify everybody?
Yeah,
I mean, it's
a different experience picking up we actually ride our bikes to Washington, and the tables set up at the front. I think Washington gets a lot of walkers, and like I said, we ride our bikes, and the tables, and there's usually 2 or 3 lunch people there, and you know, I say hi to them every day and whatnot. So I don't think we specifically needed like a table, a booth or something like that, but just, again, a familiar face to greet them. How's it going? Because yeah, we don't want to, you know, put ourselves out there and risk us or anybody else. But again, I think it just goes back to just seeing a familiar face. And another thing is that we haven't received any, actually, we haven't seen any communication in in our SAC lunches. So I don't know if it's specific to school or what, but if that's the case, then we need to remember that not everybody is going to their home school or the school that they attend.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good point.
This is Diana. Thanks for bringing that up, Maria, because that should not have been the case. The last communication should have been about kindergarten registration. But also we have mobile meal sites. So we have to kind of think differently about how we can serve families that are on those mobile meal sites out in the rural part of the district. So we'll add that into our thinking about how we can engage with those families who are out in more of the county and rural parts of the district.
Do we have any idea if the students who are not engaging are actually picking up lunches?
No, that goes back to Michelle's. We're not tracking student names there. That's not it literally is trying to do the tick marks.
Yeah. Okay. So I think back to the community network is probably an effective potential way.
Absolutely. Okay, the next hint that Martin asked me to look into are lunches, as we're on that theme. It's about 9,000 lunches and breakfasts a week. So, you know, over 100,000 served in this 3 months, which is just an incredible number of families, you know, being fed on a regular basis. But we're very consistent, about 9,000 a breakfast and a lunch being served each week throughout our district.
9,000 of each or 9,000 total?
9,000 total.
And
So
kudos to
meals being served each week.
kudos to Chris and his staff, because like
Oh,
I mean, the selection's pretty good. The variety. And it's speaking from a parent that, you know, I'm working full time, and so is Miss Bells. And so it just, it's a huge support for, you know, all the families out there. So anyways, thank you to Chris and his team, because they're doing a fabulous job. So
it is all Chris, all those, his team, as Diana had mentioned, some of our transportation folks who are making it remote, but it's an amazing meal. It really is. It's pretty crazy what we're serving in our lunch, or in our breakfast and lunch bags. So I appreciate you saying that. And Maria and Julie mentioned this as well. Our lunches are across economic boundaries, because for many parents, and I can't remember if it was you, Maria, or Julie, who said, just nice having some consistency within the schedule. So from Sunny Slope to Columbia and Mission View, our parents are engaging. It's fantastic. That's what we want. It's one way to have a little bit of normalcy in this pandemic. And huge kudos to Chris, the nutritional service team, who do a phenomenal job in traditional settings, but this is just stepping it up like tenfold. Other questions on that?
I can really relate to that
And then Martin asked,
statement about
oh, sorry.
normalcy. Oops, sorry to interrupt you. I can really relate to that statement about normalcy. You know, in our own home, we had a garden party where people maintained their social distance, but we had the opportunity to see some family and friends face to face, and just my own feeling of great relief. It was a huge stress reliever. So any opportunity that we can give to families to feel that would be a wonderful benefit. I mean,
It just is.
yeah, it was so
It
simple.
just is.
Wow.
Can I say something quickly?
Yeah, it's
Laura?
good stuff.
Sorry.
Yeah,
This is just shooting from the hip and listening to this. You know, we've gone by several weeks, and it's been like the long race, and we're getting to the last 50 meters to the 400. Would it be a nice gesture to have some kind of emotion of gratitude from the board to every employee that could be put, I don't know whether you even stick it out with the notice of paychecks or anything that's a universal communication to every employee in the school district, that, you know, people know they're saying thank you, but to have something that is a specific expression of gratitude.
I like it.
Is there a good place to do it and proper protocol?
Probably in one of our staff, where we're sending staff communication, and that can be the top of the newsletter directly from the board.
Yeah, because I think it'd be wonderful. I mean, for the drivers, for the food, for the teachers, for everybody, without exception.
Absolutely. Yeah, we don't do the best way to communicate through, you know, our newsletters.
Okay, so maybe Diana, you can connect with us on the timing of that and when you might need some text.
Yeah, certainly. I would probably suggest we wait until after graduation, just till things die down a little bit. And then we can focus on, you know, that statement of gratitude as we look towards the end of the school year. I say that in quotes. But yes, I will definitely work with you on pulling that together.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, as we talked about graduation, graduation week is upon us. We're excited about the events for Friday, kicking off at 9 a.m. with a senior breakfast lunch that will go from the breakfast will go from 9 to 11. The lunch will go from 11 to 3. And it's an opportunity for our seniors to be in their cars, come in their cap and gowns, receive all of the, the diploma covers, if they're missing any honor cords or any other graduation related. It's what it is. We're not collecting books and those kind of things, and this isn't your time to turn in things. It is just graduation related items that the high school will be giving to our students who come through. But it's going to be a little bit more of an honor kind of a place for our kids. So our high school staff will be out there, socially distanced, 6 to 10 feet away, masks, but signs, in a way of closure, of creating some type of closure for both the staff and the students. And I know the high school is encouraging kids to do some decorations on their cars, but to be present, to be able to be there if they're able to. From there, there's an opportunity for a senior selfie and senior walk over at the Apple Bowl. We heard loudly and clearly that parents and students wanted some type of stage event. This will be a stage where students will be able to walk up with their families, take a picture, take a video, and then head off. But again, everything is going to be done with with safety being at the forefront, where a family will go in. This will not be a mass of people going in to do the senior selfie and senior walk. But it is an opportunity to kind of capture this moment in a safe way. And then at 7 o'clock, the graduation on NCW Life will be shown, and everyone's excited to see that. And then the following week, we get Westside. Westside's has their own special, as I've been told many, many times since being here. The Wenatchee High School graduation is a thing of beauty. The Westside will bring you to tears because of the personal story that they're able to share, just because they're a much smaller graduating class. So excited to honor all of our 2020 high school seniors and the work that they've done. So we're excited about this week. Diana, anything that I've missed, which is probably a number of things?
Well, there's 2 publications coming out this week, so keep an eye on that. Our senior feature just got printed and should be hitting your mailbox. Yep, Paul's got a copy.
Beautiful.
That'll be coming out in your mail probably tomorrow, maybe Thursday. Just depends on how quickly the mail can get to us, but it turned out really great, and it has all the pages from both Wenatchee High School and Westside High School's yearbooks, which are delayed. So it's kind of nice that we can get those in the hands of kids and families. And that'll be mailed to all of the residents of Wenatchee and Malaga. And I delivered about 500 extra copies over to Wenatchee High School today. So they'll have those in English and Spanish for students and families as they roll through the drive-through graduation experience on Friday, if they didn't get a copy, for example, if they live outside of our boundaries, and also for staff that maybe want them that also don't live in our boundary area. And then on Friday, we took out a full page ad in the Wenatchee World that lists all of our graduates. So their names will be listed there with a special message from us and a couple pictures. So make sure you pick up a copy of that. And I think that's pretty much it. It's going to be a busy day on Friday.
And then the coolest thing is it's going to be crazy busy on Friday. But if you haven't not seen the artist who came in on Saturday, painted the logo, and then put every one of our students' names at the front of the high school on the grass. It is an absolute work of art. Pretty incredible. I was able to spend a few moments with the artist and his wife It's a team who come out and do this, but it's a really cool way of honoring again our 2020 seniors.
And to really appreciate that, you've got to get out of your car. So you can't see it when you drive by. As a matter of fact, you'll drive by it and go, oh my gosh, where's the white paint with the names on it? Because you can't see it. Just the way the angle of the hillside is. Make sure you get out of your car and you walk through it, because it really is a touching experience just to see the names of the grads. So I encourage you to do that if you can. And then I wrote an article about it and sent that on to the Wenatchee World. So hopefully they'll publish that this week as well, just about the artist and the tribute to the class of 2020. Oh, and last but not least, sorry, we've got one more thing. Check our Facebook page in the high schools, because if you are a fan of The Office, Rainn Wilson, who's the actor, plays Dwight Schrute, sent a special message to Wenatchee High School grads that we posted up just about an hour ago.
Ah, funny. Oh, that's great. I was just going to say on Facebook, RM Photos with a Z has a great aerial shot of that art piece for both Wenatchee and Eastmont on their Facebook page. So if you're a Facebook follower, look at RM Photos with a Z at the end.
And we'll post that photo. We were waiting until a little bit later this week, but we'll post the aerial version of Wenatchee High Schools shortly.
Okay, thank you.
So pretty great week. COVID or no COVID, we're making graduation special for our kids. Mike and I were able to participate in a collaborative meeting with Eastmont, hosted by the Wenatchee Valley Museum and Cultural Center. Mike and I shared our perspective on the shutdown and online learning, what it looks like now, what are we anticipating for the future. It was a really great opportunity one more time to collaborate with Eastmont and seeing the similarities between both districts. So that was a really nice opportunity. We just keep moving forward. And trying to ensure that we're doing the best thing we possibly can for each and every one of our kids. Board, anything, or Diana or Ron, anything else that I've missed?
I don't think so.
I don't think I have anything else.
Okay.
Okay. So the board has an executive session, and so I have a statement to read about that. The school board will now recess into executive session for a period of 30 minutes to evaluate the qualifications of an applicant for public employment or to review the performance of a staff member pursuant to district policy number 1410 and RCW 42.30.110. This discussion will be closed to the public. The school board is not expected to take final action following the executive session. Okay.
Hey, stream is